Hello everybody, I'm Sarah and I'm a recorder player. One of the most famous tunes for recorder is the English Nightingale, or Engels Nachtegaaltje, by Jacob van Eyck. There are a lot of special things about this tune. It was a written out improvisation by Van Eyck, who was a blind bell maker in the 17th century. He was also a recorder player actually employed by the local government to sit in the town square and play his recorder to keep away the local teenagers. Well, the joke's on you, Utrecht's Town Council, because this is the music we just can't get enough of today in the recorder world, apparently. So let's look at this tune. How did it get so popular? Why is it such an integral part of the recorder canon? And what can this tell us about the wider classical canon as a whole? First, the music. This is obviously a tune from England. Interestingly enough, it sits high in the range of the recorder. And that's a conscious choice. By utilising this high second register, with the occasional dip down to the lowest note, it really gives this impression of a bird-like, song-like quality. And if this was played outside, as we know it was, this would help it to carry, a bit like a bird. It's catchy, what can I say? This was a popular folk tune. It would have been played across England, across Europe, and eventually English Nightingale meet Van Eyck. I've already mentioned his job as the resident recorderist of that town. Seriously, how can I get employed as that job? He would specifically choose these popular, well-known pieces, both because people liked to listen to them and he probably liked them. Eventually, his improvisations on these tunes were written down by a scribe, and this became the huge volume of 143 works we know as the Fluyten lust-hof, the flute's pleasure garden. I've talked about this extensively in this video, and the tune sources are a real mixed bag. We've got French songs, settings of religious psalms, dance movements, even instrumental pieces that sound like a keyboard. The really interesting thing about the English Nightingale is that it actually appears twice. In volume 1 you get Engels Nachtegaaltje, and in volume 2, Den Nachtegaal. They're the same piece, just with different variations. Van Eyck actually included doubles in the Fluyten lust-hof a lot. Malesiemen gets 2 mentions, Lanteloo is in there twice, the famed Daphne that I'm always playing is in there 3 times. But what is the difference? I took it upon myself to notate both versions one on top of the other so we can compare them, so let's have a look. In both versions you will see the theme, the first variation and the second variation. In each there are 2 parts. I'm going to get really sick of saying Nachtegaaltje, so let's say the first one, English Nachtegaaltje, is version 1, Den Nachtegaal is version 2. The first part we'll see the theme is virtually identical. The only difference is that version 2 dots a lot of the notes, whereas version 1 keeps them straight. But in the B part, we see something curious. In version 2, it's 1 bar longer. There is an extra bar, and this comes back in the variations too. So this extra bar is in the same place every time. Why is it there? Maybe by the time Van Eyck got to improvise this new version, maybe Van Eyck just really enjoyed that bit and he wanted to indulge himself. Why not? Who has not wanted to indulge themselves when they're at work by doing something fun? We see some interesting figures coming back over the two versions. This figure, da 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 da, that comes back in both versions in different places. Obviously, these improvisations weren't dreamed up from nothing. Van Eyck had his different figures that he'd like, he'd store them up and reuse them. A bit like the lick, but Renaissance. Other devices he uses in different ways. Dotted notes. Dotted figures are used throughout. These sound light, sprightly, bird-like. As we've seen, the English Nightingale uses them sparingly. The Nightingale, it's used throughout. Octaves. He uses a lot of echoes, playing a cell and then repeating it in a different octave. Birds calling and answering. It's often these cells copying one another, but by the time he's improvising his later version, he's breaking up the motifs themselves over these large octave jumps. We see this in Der Nachtigall from bar 40. This feels a little bit more daring than what had come before. And then in the last and most virtuosic variation, we see the earlier English Nightingale sticking to these long scalic passages. Scales, scales, scales. Whereas in the later Der Nachtigall, Van Eyck is playing around with the phrase lengths a lot more. Before really hitting us with those big jumps at the very end. What does this tell us? That we can have a lot of fun with this music. As long as you follow the contours of the original melody and its implied harmonic structure, you can play around with it a lot. So why not make your own variations? You could start by chopping and changing from these two versions, taking the bits you like and combining them, writing your own things on top. Van Eyck was changing rhythms, adding in extra bars, changing the lengths of the phrases. So you're allowed to pretty much... Wait. Just how much can we pull it around? Now, don't only listen to me. Let's see what some of my colleagues are doing. I got on Spotify to listen to and compare a bunch of recordings. The striking thing was a handful of people have recorded Der Nachtigall, and there are thousands of recordings of the English Nightingale. I usually play Der Nachtigall, the less popular one. What does this mean? Probably absolutely nothing. Maybe everybody just bought book one. Let's start with Dan Lauren. He recorded all of the Fluyten lust-hof over 9 discs. Dan Lauren plays with repeats. He plays very faithfully to the score. He includes an ornament that I also heard Lucy Horsch do, and it's something I do, so maybe it's in our blood. It sounds like this. That scale. It's fun to play and it sounds like a bird. With these long high Gs, Dan also uses Fluttertongue, and this is something I hear a lot of players doing. A really nice way where these contemporary techniques come into early music in a really effective way. He plays around with tempo as well. The A to F fast motif in the last section. Delightful. He turns it into a trill. I then listened to Lucy Horsch's version, and it's quite similar to Dan's in the sense that she doesn't change the music a lot, but uses lots of beautiful phrasing and articulation to bring it out without needing wild special effects. wasn't necessarily Lucy's playing, I'm just having fun. Erik Bosgraaf. Woo! For a start, he plays it on a very high sopranino. He plays the repeats, but the first repeat is always English Nightingale and the second repeat is always Den Nachtegaal. Ooh, that's a nice way of combining them. He uses some fun effects, for example, in the theme, sprinkles in a bit of glissando. He also uses some quite wide trills. I listened to Dorothea Oberlinger's version. I really like her treatment of the first note. This. I realised that I myself always add a trill, almost without thinking about it, and it's nice to think of other options. Dorothea uses a flattement. Another beautiful way of adding interest. She really plays with tempo. Her last variation, oh my god, I can't play it that fast. How fast does she actually play it? Now I want to know. Ooh, you have to practice that. But I like how she uses this tempo. Earlier on, she uses a lot of staccato. It really gives it another feeling. Elizabeth Larsen uses really bird-like trills in the beginning. And I love this pulling around and playing with the material. I'm going to show you something that I have kind of built into my interpretation. Near the end, at the climax of the piece, there's this long high G. Bearing in mind, we've heard it already as fluttertongue, as a trill. And I decided to take this to the next level with this. A wide, slightly illegal trill. Maybe Van Eyck purists would be like, no! So as we've heard, there are so many interpretations. For you, go with what you are comfortable with and what is inspiring for you. We have the faithful performances that are more bringing out the phrasing and the articulation, all the way to these wild explorations through the aviary, and that's all great. At this point, some of you Van Eyck aficionados, the die-hard superfans who begin every morning with a hearty rendition of the Eerste Likpot, are undoubtedly thinking, why are we always talking about this same piece? There are 142 others to choose from. If I hear the English Nightingale one more time, I will break something. Is something that I definitely didn't think at any point during the research for this video. And you're right. There are many other great pieces that never get any attention. Well, the good news is I've reeled you in with this popular one. Let's talk about the others. The good news is I'm really happy to be part of a new Van Eyck project set up by Walter van Houwer and Kees Boeke. It's called the Fluyten lust-hof.org. Its aim is to provide an online database of performances from the entire Fluyten lust-hof by professional performers from all over the world for free. It launched last month and I was very happy to contribute. It launched last month and I was very happy to provide 3 performances. There are a lot of famous faces on there, so I'll put the link in the description. Go and check it out. So lastly, some thoughts on why the English Nightingale is so popular and what can this tell us? First off, it is a really great catchy tune. It's fun to play. It sounds good. But pieces get popular when they get a lot of exposure. Engel's Nachtegaaltje, for example, has long been on the grade syllabus for exams in England, and this is something that a lot of teachers follow. This means that teachers always teach it, students always know it, it gets passed down, and voila! Everyone's playing it. It must be great. They must be playing it because it's the best piece. It's a self-perpetuating circle, and that's not to say that this piece doesn't deserve to be played a lot. but I'm not so sure if it does more than all the others in the book. And when you look at it with that kind of critical lens and apply that to classical music as a whole, it does make you think. Are we always hearing these great, fantastic pieces because they're intrinsically the greatest masterworks? Or do we think they're the best because they're played all the time? To be honest, it's probably a bit of both. And this is why I'm always advocating for making sure our music curricula and syllabuses are refreshed from time to time, given a bit more choice, because we can really easily come to a place where we're always playing the same pieces. And it doesn't mean we can never play these popular pieces again. I've been performing the English Nightingale for nearly 20 years now. Oh my god. But let's not ignore the lesser known ones. It's really worth stepping outside of your comfort zone and getting to know something a bit unfamiliar. Just taking a moment to appreciate the fact that this bizarre Renaissance bird song is now what has become known as our comfort zone. At least mine. It's mine at least. So with that, let's wrap up. If you'd like to hear a full performance, link in the description to the Fun Eyck project. As always, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face down here. You can choose to support Team Recorder on Patreon with this link, and here's some more videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!